first question I have for you is considering your background as an international musician, actor, and grassroots politician, if we could say that, who had humble beginnings as a youth and who has endured tough circumstances in Uganda, how were you able to persevere and become who you are today?
Oh, great. How was I able to make it, right? Wow, like Tupac said, I'm a rose that grew out of concrete. Yeah, it is music that did it for me. Music was the trick. You know, I grew up with so many of my friends. Many are dead, many are in jail, many lost it on drugs. It was by the grace of the Almighty. When you were opening up, you gave respect to the ancestors, and I'm glad. Maybe there was a reason. Maybe the Almighty and the ancestors saved me and uplifted me to make a difference. I cannot honestly put a finger on anything that I did different, because I grew up as crazy as any other young man. But somehow the music got me out of the ghetto, and after living a crazy life, I noticed that so many people follow me, and then slowly but surely I transformed myself from a crazy young man to a decent man. And I'm still transforming myself. I'm going to get better than that. Thank you.
Two-part question. The first part is coalition building in Ugandan context to remove or to change leadership democratically from the current president. Can you offer some of the leaders in Uganda, like Olara Otunu or any others who have also fought alongside with your father in terms of the change to Museveni? Those that have been in the battlefield alongside you to see the injustices, can you speak to that intergenerational connection? And then also, have you found any support while you're in the States? Because if not, we should maybe talk about that as well in terms of the diaspora. So can you speak to the first part?
Thank you. Intergenerational coalitions. Certainly, first of all, I was inspired by Dr. Kizza Besigye. Now, Dr. Kizza Besigye is the immediate previous leader of the opposition. He went through a lot, but he showed my generation that you can actually stand up to a dictator. We used to be scared. He gave us that confidence. Not just him. I'm very glad and honored that I'm his very close friend. We are working together. We have a coalition called United Forces of Change. He comes from a different political party from mine, and so does Ambassador Olara Otunu, but we are very close friends. It's such an honor for me that we are working together. I'm only leading because I'm representative of the new generation, the young generation, and I've got a generation that is energetic. So they are with me, I am with them, and we're working together. And you also asked if we've had any support. I must be thankful we've had support from the United States government in terms of statements. We've had some really strong statements from the US. Every time there's gross human rights violation or gross abuse to the rule of law, there's one or two either mild or strong statements, although we believe that the United States government can do more than statements. They can put action other than statements. We have a strong diaspora here. Most of our professionals left home because the country does not resonate with the kind of life and the kind of world they believe in. Right there we have Dr. Kauma. Dr. Kauma is the leader of our diaspora in the United States. And we also have my brother Deo Kaunde, and we have Karim Ntambi. Now, these are some of the intellectuals that were kind enough to support this young man from the ghetto and believe in him. So while I am in many ways the body, they are the brain, and we're working together. So we got support ideologically, which we need, and they are running things in the diaspora where I'm not. Thank you.
So what we're gonna do is, can we go immediately to your left, down to blue, and then to red, and we're gonna go back.
Thank you. My name is Master Jubilee Chisiwa. I am an international student from Uganda, Kampala, and Tinda.
Wow.
So, yes. So really just what I wanted to say, I just wanted to say thank you for speaking up for our people when nobody could, when everybody was scared. Just me standing up here, that's scary for me. I don't know what can happen to me. And that's what's going on. Thank you for just representing us nonstop, regardless of the tides. I was in Kasangati in my school during the riots, and I felt everything. So it's real. That's what's going on in Uganda. That's what's going on in my motherland. So keep shining the light on what's going on, and as the generation, we'll do something.
For real.
My name is Olivia Nzang. I'm also an international student from Equatorial Guinea. My dad worked for the World Health Organization in Congo, Brazil. Moved here 8 years ago. Yeah. Listening to you speak kind of feels like listening to an older version of myself in some alternate universe, so it's kind of scary, and I'm like shaking almost. But the question that I have for you is, how do you communicate with your people in a way that makes you be understood? And like, how do you overcome fear as a community? And I asked this specifically because you said that you had close to 300 supporters basically be shot, you feel me? And I know that those people knew that that was a possibility that day when they went. And so how do you make it so that they still go, basically?
Thank you. Let me stand my sister. First for my sister from Uganda. Thank you very much. Many Ugandans even fear to associate with me. Taking a picture with me is treasonous. I'm an illegal human being in Uganda. So thank you for the strength. I don't take it for granted. Olivia from Equatorial Guinea is asking, how do I communicate? This is how I communicate, especially to the young people who are the majority. We are living in a time similar to the one of slave trade. This oppression is worse than apartheid. The gun is the master and the cities enslaved. The pearl of Africa is bleeding. Question, what was the purpose of the liberation when we can't have a peaceful transition? What was the purpose of the Constitution when the government disrespect the Constitution? Where is my freedom of expression when you judge me because of my expression? See what you're doing to our nation. What are you teaching the future generation? See, our leaders become misleaders, and see, our mentors become tormentors. Freedom fighters become dictators. They look at the youth and say we are detractors. We are fighting for freedom. I use music. Music has been magical. And I believe that if it was not music, I would also be history like everybody else. But music has played a very powerful role that the young people get to listen to me, because this that I'm saying, so many people have said, even much more articulate than myself. But it has been cliche. But the music somehow gets through. And in any case, political conversations are not allowed on radio. You know, you cannot go on radio and give a political speech. But when I get a beat and do a song and send it on YouTube and spread it on WhatsApp, before long, all people get the message. So that is our most effective means of communication. How do we overcome the fear? Man, I don't know. I don't know, but we just look back at the people that have been where we are. I mean, Mandela taught us that bravery is not the absence of fear, but it's the ability to overcome that fear. So we try to overcome that fear. We've not yet overcome it. Man, we get scared sometimes. It's scary. But I mean, we just do it anyway. So I can't really tell you, I have no blueprint on how to be brave, because I'm not brave myself. I'm just desperate.
Wait over here, then we make our way to
Thank you once again for coming to our university. It's been an honor listening to you. My name is Ojo Rumio Koka. I'm a freshman political science major from Atlanta, Georgia. One of the most important questions I have to ask you to you today is, what is it like running a campaign in Uganda? Specifically, what are the structural issues that you faced other than electoral intimidation? Thank you.
What is it like to run a campaign in Uganda? I'm looking for a decent word, a less scary word. I can only say it is hell. It's crazy. It is dangerous. But it's as exciting as dangerous. Because much as people get killed every time I step on the road, young people come in droves. So it's exciting. It creates so much hope, but it's dangerous. It's crazy. I don't know how to explain it. But I mean, like I told you, the circumstances, you can only imagine. Yeah.
We're gonna go to the sister in the back, and then my brother in front, and we're gonna go to his right, so back this way, and then if anybody wants to see.
Good evening, I'm Pauline Malvin, I'm an African American, based from Atlanta, Georgia, currently with USAID, possible PhD student at HU, so HU, thank you so much for facilitating this, especially future Dr. Lawrence, thank you, DuPont. I had the pleasure and honor to live in Uganda during 2018, 2019, did some slum dwellers work in Kaiwan Bay. Definitely say it is the Pearl of Africa. If folks have not gotten there yet, definitely please go there. The question that I have is pretty straightforward, but it can be a very complex answer, especially with you sharing the traumatic experiences that you had in 2018 and 2019. What are your plans in 2026?
Man, oh man. What are my plans for 2026? The first question should be, what are my plans now? It's to stay alive. My plans is to stay alive and to not stop. Now, I don't know how to balance the two. Not stopping and yet staying alive. I'm not even sure whether we're going to have an election in 2026, because it is rumored that much as he has the military, much as he was able to use the military to rig the election, it left him dented. And I told my friends that we are going into this election, but with the state machinery, I cannot promise you that General Museveni is going to announce us winner, even when we win him by 90%. But at least what we should get is, let us strip him naked. Let us pull off the mask, and we pulled off the mask and showed the dictatorship for what it is. That is why our next step is to hold to account the international community for working directly with the military dictator that they see themselves. And that is what we succeeded at getting. Now, whether or not there's going to be an election in 2026. We live by the day, because I cannot give you a guarantee that I'll be alive next year. Of course, I want to be alive. I have a family, 4 beautiful children, and a lovely wife. But I can't guarantee on that. So we live every day the way it comes. We want to stay alive. We want to awaken as many people as possible. We want to awaken and shine a light on the plight of Uganda in the international community, so that if there is ever going to be an election and we're going to go in it, we don't rely just on the administration of the United States or other international development partners, but we rely on the citizens of the world whose money is sponsoring the mess back home. So I can't really put my thought and hope in 2026. I'm putting my hope in today and tomorrow and the day after.
My name is Emmanuel Adu. I'm from Ghana, and as I had shared earlier, I received the notice last night that you're in town, and my people insisted that I come and see you. And so mine is more so of a statement than a question, and that is to show our solidarity with you, with the work, what you're doing. We see it, we feel it, we know the realities of the thing that you're going through, and what you're doing, it reminds me of something you said when I spoke to you earlier, about Nkrumah. There's this statement of winds of change. And what you have started is the winds of change that is going to be blowing across Africa. Because we've seen it in Nigeria, we've seen it in other parts of Africa, and even in Ghana, that we have our own issues which have been bubbled up to where you are now. But the wind is blowing is what I'm trying to say. And keep inspiring, keep staying strong. If there is anything that we can do, we are willing to support, we are able to support. Don't discount the support you can get from the African diaspora on the continent. Because sometimes we look outside so much and think that the help is out there, and within us locally, we are able to mobilize, we're able to organize resource. Our leaders have done it in the past. They didn't seek so much help. There's so many examples of intra-Africa support during the independence movement and anti-imperial movement. And so lean on us and whatever we can do to help and push this forward. Like you said, one day at a time. So whatever we can do to help move it one day to the next day, we are here to support, especially your great supporters in Ghana. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Wheeler, and then the lady to your right.
Okay. My name is Wheeler Winstead, Assistant Director for the Center for African Studies. First, I got to say very quickly, 2 years ago, I got a notice from my colleague back there about a film that she wanted to show us, and that she was showing about people we need to know about in Africa. And that colleague is Cecile Daniels, and she showed us this film on Bobi Wine, People's President, a couple years ago. And then I was really impressed with that. It's like, wow, that's interesting. At that time, I happened to teach a class, and so part of my class, I insisted that my students watch that film, Bobi Wine, People's President. So first, I want to say thank you, Daniels, for being willing to introduce us to leaders like Bobi Wine. Thank you, Bobi Wine, for being real. My only question is, where can we send money? We're here. I know we can talk, we're going to do things, but I know you need money. I know you need money. Where can we send money, and how do you make that information available to us so that we can actually do it? And I invite everyone to do what they can.
Thank you, Professor. I appreciate. We appreciate the money so much, and indeed, after answering the question, I would, with your permission, ask Dr. Kauma, who is the leader of our diaspora team, and who has leading a team that has helped us run the campaign back home. Our diaspora ran our campaign. We never lacked fuel, We never lacked food on the campaign, courtesy of our diaspora, especially the American diaspora. So Dr. Kauma will answer the question of the money, where they can send it. However, I know most young people here cannot give money, but I believe they can give something more than money. What is that? To please reach out to your elected leaders, the Congress men and women, and ask them to review their relationship with Uganda and make respect for democracy, respect for the rule of law, and respect for human rights a precondition for aid in Uganda. The US gives to the tune of $1 billion to General Museveni's military regime. I know that can be changed because you guys in America have rights. And I know that you are powerful, your voices are powerful enough. So kindly reach out to your leaders, the congressmen and women. Through them, you'll be reaching out to the government, and your voices can help to change the policies back in Uganda. But please, Dr. Kauma, if you could kindly share.
So I'll be able to share the information at the end of the session. Okay. So if anyone wants to make a donation towards the cause in Uganda, just reach out to me after the event and we can provide you with the numbers where you can forward that information.
But those online,
Sorry?
so those online listening, maybe they
Oh,
Yeah, so maybe give your email address, your
Yes.
cell phone number,
Okay.
Yeah.
because it's being recorded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a number just a second, okay? Let me get you the right number.
Okay, please. Yeah, I'll remind you to give the number.
And questions, order, because we have so many, we start with two young ladies in the front, and then we're gonna make our way to the gentleman back in the seat.
Hello, my name is Chidel Manyonga Kibirige Sinkandra. I was born in Mango and I grew up in Massachusetts and now I'm studying poli-sci at Howard. And my question is, when elected, what policies would you enact that are different or better than the current government policies?
Thank you very much. What policies would we enact that are better than the living policies? First of all, I will have to mention that Uganda is not short of good policies, but they don't matter because the main policy of the regime is to stay in power, and everything else is secondary. Corruption is the currency back home. That is why all the COVID donations from the international community were stolen. All that the government collects is stolen. Actually, in Uganda, we have a recent scandal where we have an area called Karamoja. Now, this is the poorest place, in my view, in the world. The poorest of the poorest, although it's the richest in minerals. So there was a budget that was allocated to Karamoja, and 10,000 iron sheets were sent to Karamoja. These iron sheets were stolen, not by thugs, but by the Vice President of Uganda, the Prime Minister of Uganda, the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, the Minister of Ethics and Integrity of Uganda, the Minister of Finance of Uganda, and they shared them. It was such a big scandal that each of these ministers, out of shame, General Museveni ordered, and they were arrested and put in prison for 48 hours. However, the young people, the young men and women who dared to protest against this grand theft were beaten, tortured, thrown in prison, and up to date, they are in prison. So our policy, number one, will be fighting corruption. But we have the fist five, we have the fist five, revamping the healthcare system that is sick itself. In Uganda, we lose 18 women every day giving back. Not every week, every day. We lose 300 children under the age of 5 that die out of avoidable circumstances. Right now in Uganda, there's a trending campaign on Twitter called Uganda's Health Exhibition. And if you go on Twitter and put in hashtag Uganda Health Exhibition, you are going to see a sick healthcare system. So we want to revamp our healthcare system. We want to revamp our education system and change, because the education system is colonial now. It is training job seekers instead of job creators. You know, when I'm president of Uganda, our education is going to focus on 4 A's, and those A's are arts, academics, athletics, and agriculture. I believe this is going to transform the nation, where we're not going to focus only on academics, but also on the arts and transforming our abilities to be able to change our country. We want to revamp our image and change our relationship with the world. We don't want to be seen as a failed state. We want to be seen as a friendly state. And when I'm president, Uganda is going to have the coolest president. And it's going to be the best, you know, tourist destination in the world. So, of course, we respect rights, we respect democracy and all that. But just to mention that among the many.
Turn left, then your destination will be on the right.
You're here, right?
Okay. Hello, good evening. My name is Kelly. Thank you for coming here. My question is around transition. Do you have like a transition roadmap or exactly what that would look like? Do you have people in mind that you would have over the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Agriculture? And you are critical right now about the U.S. role in support for aid as well as other countries. Will your perception really change because you feel like the country would have more of a better human rights, I guess, like example within the country? So I hope that this makes sense. Because there hasn't been a transition in over 30 years. So
Since independence.
yes, since independence. So with that being said, I'm just thinking out loud, if you are elected and if it is recognized, the next couple of weeks or couple of days, I would think would be something that we haven't seen before. What would that, within a Ugandan context, what would that look like?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The transition, that is what we've been yearning for, that's what we continue to yearn for. First of all, when I become president, not if, when. When I'm president, the transition, first of all, will be reconciliatory. We live in a deeply divided country, divided along class, along religion, along ethnicity, and we want the transition to be inclusive. We know that even within this regime, we have very resourceful people. Unfortunately, they are powerless. The ministers themselves silently complain because they are only appointed to represent a certain region, not to do the work. But also, I must mention that most of our talented, educated, and knowledgeable people have had to leave the country because of hostile economic and political conditions, and also because they don't have opportunity. I dream of a day when we're going to have a mass repatriation back to the country, where we have all these doctors, all these engineers coming back to the motherland to help rebuild the country. That transition, first of all, is going to disempower the president so much. I will be the first president that is not all powerful, because we want to return power in the institutions. What Chairman Museveni did is to disempower the institutions. We want to empower the institutions so that they work beyond human weakness and human greed. We want to have an inclusive, leadership, and of course, an all-reaching leadership. So our transition, we hope to make it friendly, smooth, and reconciliatory.
So the young man in the front and then the young man in the back. So when you were in Uganda, so I just wanted to first of all acknowledge when you talked about edutainment. One of my favorite songs from you is actually, I think I don't know the name of the song, it might be called Money, but it's Money Makes Man Mad.
Yeah.
Mr. Money. And there's a line where you said you were arrested and you gave the first bribe. He looked at you. You gave the second one. He looked at you. Then you gave the 30,000. He looked up, looked at the bribe, and then he let you go. So that's just to show how our country works even till now, whereby that culture of corruption is deep lying. But my question to you today, and also you spoke about professionals leaving Uganda. I was born in Mulago, but unfortunately I was one of the people who my parents decided the ideals at the time. My dad used to work for Action Aid in Uganda, and his office was actually raided the year we left. And I remember I was in P3 when we were going back home, and the only reason we weren't killed in the car was because Action Aid had projects in the slums. That's the only reason why they didn't hit that pickup that we were in that day. So, just rounding back again, my question to you is, throughout the election process, there were claims about your credibility in terms of there were people who still saw you as the ghetto president, the Rasta. So, how have you sort of combated that people, coming for your credibility? Because, for example, for people like Besigye who had been in power, in terms of throughout time, how would you combat that, those feelings from all the people? Because, as you said, you appeal to the youth, but, for example, like my parents, and how would you appeal to people who are over 50 who still see you as the ghetto president?
Thank you very much. That's true. I'm a ghetto boy, and I've never disassociated myself with the same. That has earned me so much support of the downtrodden, and it has earned me criticism for being who I am and belonging there. Because in our country, many believe that politics is for a certain class. I've been able to combat that by associating with the knowledgeable and the elderly. I'm surrounded by professionals and knowledgeable people and elderly people. So anybody that questions my ability to lead, anybody that questions my experience, I point at the elders near me. For example, my deputy president in charge of Northern Uganda is a doctor, Dr. Lina Zedriga, and she's 61 years old. My deputy president in charge of Western Uganda is Dr. Jolly Mujisha. She's 60 years old. My deputy president in charge of Eastern Uganda is Honorable John Baptist Nambeshe. He's also in his 60s, and he's an engineer. And the same with Honorable Mpuga. So I surround myself with intellectuals, decent intellectuals, and I also associate so much with the elderly. An example is Ambassador Olarutumu and the rest. So that alone answers the questions. And of course, that narrative is largely pushed by the regime. It is not as strong as the message of freedom that I preach. So the message that we preach is stronger than the criticism, and that ticks the box.
Next one.
My second for you, His Excellency. I just want to thank you so much. My name is Edwin Okong. I'm a national student and also a student athlete from Uganda, Brazil. So I just want to thank you for, coming out of the 45 million people who were scared to speak the truth. You came out, you helped us open our eyes to see what people are doing and also speaking the truth, because people are scared to hear the truth. But regardless of the situation, you have to know if you're doing something wrong. But during the course of your campaign, my cousin brother till now is still in jail because he supports you. He was jailed because he belongs to your party, and it's so unfortunate. Till now, we try to fight with all the people in charge to help my brother get out, but it's unfortunate right now. But regardless of the situation, we keep moving because the way you said you sound like because like you said, we keep moving, and because coming out of Uganda, come here, it's a hard enough life. It's hard, based on the current situation we have back home. But my question for you is, how have you looked back to solving those issues about those youths who are still, who are jailed for no reason because they support you? So how have you solved the situation? Because we know we have so many of them. I'm just speaking on behalf of my brother, but there are so many of them in the country who are still in jail because they support you, but they don't support the government, which is in power.
Thank you. First of all, man, I'm sorry that your brother's in jail, just like hundreds of others. It is the hardest thing for me to look in the eyes of the parents or relatives of those that have been killed, that have disappeared, or in jail. Because there's a narrative that I'm responsible for that. And indeed, even adverts are put on radio. Parents, you see what Bobi Wine is doing to your children? He's causing them to go to jail, as if I'm taking them to commit a crime. It is hard, but it's always soothing to know that people like you are not castigating me for that, because I did not arrest them. General Museveni did. How are we going to make sure they get their freedom? In the meantime, we agitate, we campaign, we move across the world like I am doing to ask for friends of Uganda to help us agitate. We push on social media because now it's even dangerous to campaign on the street. But I'll tell you one thing that gives me hope. The day Idi Amin fell, thousands of political prisoners were freed. So that is the day that I'm working for every day. As soon as the Museveni dictatorship is put to an end, all political prisoners, I'm sure, will be freed. But even before then, I know that if the international community puts enough pressure for those people, they'll be freed. And that is what I'm looking for. That is what we're doing. I don't know what single thing to do to free them, but I know that a combination of various actions will bring to freedom. Will bring the freedom of those our brothers and sisters. So we do everything that we can. And I believe that one day we're going to strike the right chord, which I don't know yet, but we're going to strike the right chord and we'll get their freedom.
I see we have two questions to the left. Yes, sir.
Don't forget the east wing of the room.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Paul Kesa, and I have to come from Kenya. These accusations, this perception that you are leading young Ugandans into going to jail, being killed, and so forth, becomes a moral question. And one can almost suggest from being a devil's advocate and say, look, why don't you just let it be? Let's continue with the Museveni dictatorship, but without deaths, without imprisonment. let things be. He's actually going to 80, he's gonna die, he won't live for another 30 years at least. And so he will, die off and we can go back to a semblance of a country that runs by rules, that is free and open and so forth. Why don't you just let things be?
That's a good question. Why don't I just let things be? After all, he might die, he's in his 80s. I'll tell you one thing, that dictators seem as if they are going the next day. But Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe stayed and stayed and stayed until Zimbabwe had rotten. And indeed I would let it go. But I would be doing what the generation before me did. I wouldn't be living my comfortable and beautiful, fancy life of an artist to go into politics if the generation before me had changed things. Here I am. And if I don't do it, if I don't do this uncomfortable work, be sure I'm leaving it for my daughter and my son. So I'm doing this because I know every generation has a responsibility to prepare for the next generation. I don't want my children to be born in a country where they don't have the right to think. I don't want to grow old in a generation where I will die miserable, knowing that for my children to live a decent life, they'll have to leave the country. I don't want to grow old in a country that is not free. So I want to see that freedom in my lifetime, And also, we could leave General Museveni to do what he does. But you've seen what happens in Chad. One dictator brings another dictator. And that is happening in, Equatorial Guinea? Same thing. Cameroon? Same thing. So we have to change it or leave the pain for the next generation. And also, in Uganda, if you did not know, General Museveni has a son who is also a general.
Crazy.
And he believes that Uganda is their property. And inheriting his father's property is his birthright. Now imagine, this is a guy, and some of you might know a world-renowned author called Kapwenza Rukirabaseja, who criticized him on Twitter. He was picked, tortured. If you look at his back, it looks like the slaves of the 17th century. Scars. And that was done by Museveni's son, General Muhoozi. So man, we gotta stop that. We have to stop it. Our children, if this has to end, it must end with us. Our children will not live this life. We are the last people that are going to suffer. We are the last generation that are going to see our mothers with no clothes on their back. We are the last children that are going to, we are the last generation that is going to see 20 women dying every day. To see hospitals with no medicine. We are the last people. Our children are not going to see this. I work so hard to see that my children can afford to study in universities like this. In Uganda, we don't want, today, all government officials are treated from abroad. All their children study from abroad. I can afford that. My auntie can't afford that. The rest of my family, my father had 34 children. I am the only one that can afford that. And yet our country is rich. So I want in my lifetime to see my people benefiting from the wealth of their country, because Uganda is rich, but Ugandans are poor. We have to turn that around in this generation, not in the next generation. That's why we don't stop.
But it's good to see you, Mr. Wang. One thing I want to say first is we hope that your children never have to go through this, but we will need them to sustain the change that you're going to bring. That is the truth. That is what I learned living in this country as a black man, that regardless of which leader comes and changes the world, it's up to the next generation to sustain the change, because those dictators will try and come back. I'm a Nigerian American, shout out to any Nigerian in the house, or better yet, a Nigerian in America, let me say it that way. When I'm listening to you and your story and hearing you talk about General Museveni, I just continue to ponder of the plenty of dictators that Africa seems to not run out of, whether it be Museveni or Mugabe, Yansibe, and Paul Biya, and all of them. And I see that your country is striving for democracy. And I think the only thing worse than a dictatorship is a dictatorship that is portraying itself as a democracy. See, I'm from Nigeria, where it is democratic, right? But we still see some of the same things you're talking about. Stolen elections, fake elections, international observers calling elections a farce. So my question, and I hope I'm not stirring the pot, but I hope I am. My question is, in your idea of what it will be like when you become president, will you follow in the same old sense of democracy in the way that it has been played out in Africa? And I say that because far too many times we follow the democracy that white people have set, right? And anybody in America will tell you that this democracy is still an experiment, no matter how old it is. And what I know to be a fact is that as black people, African people, the way we operate goes complete opposite of what quote unquote democracy entails in some of its forms, as we've seen. Okay? Ask any black person who is living in a democracy who doesn't feel so quite democratic. So my question is, when you become president, good sir, how will you shape the democracy to make sure that it follows the need of just your people and Africa as a whole, than the nomenclature of what democracy has been sold?
Wow, what a question. Allow me to answer it standing up. What is my promise? Will I live by the words I'm saying right now? Will I sustain the democracy? First of all, I've said it before and I want to say it again, that it's never been and it should never be about me as an individual. When we were starting out, we started what they call the People Power movement. And our chant was people power, our power. Our power, people power. My desire and the desire of my team is to return power to the people. I can tell you, my brother, when General Museveni was my age, he was saying exactly what I'm saying, but only more articulate. He was promising what I'm promising, only more articulate. But we all know that power corrupts. And I'm a human being. So I don't want anybody to rely on me or to rely on the words I'm saying now. I want the people of Uganda to rely on themselves. That's why we want to empower the people, return power to them so that they retain the ability to kick anybody out. So that they are empowered enough. Gone are the days when we have to rely on a superman, a powerful man. It should be about the people. When people are empowered, when we liberate ourselves as a people, not as myself, then I will not have the right or ability to say, oh, I liberated you, so I should be president for life. Or I liberated you, so my son or my daughter should come and take over the reins of power after me. So it should never be about an individual. And that has been Africa's problem, over-relying on an individual. It should be not empowering the person, but empowering institutions, because institutions are stronger than individuals, and they outlive human weaknesses and human greed. We should return power to the people so that the people have the right to determine their destiny. I'm saying this right now, but 20 years from now, my ideas might be old, and the young people of then might have their own ideas. They should be empowered to determine their destiny. If I was with my grandfather right now, he would probably, if given the opportunity to shape policy, he would shape policy according to his religious beliefs. But I'm a different generation, and the next generation will be different. So the people should have the power to determine themselves. We should empower the people, we should build institutions, and institutions will determine themselves. That's what I believe in. So I don't want to give a promise. It shouldn't be about me. It should be about the people. It should be about institutions, not individuals. Not me. I'm just a representation of those ideas, and those ideas should live beyond me, so that even when my weakness kicks in as an individual, the ideas are there and cannot be changed according to my interest, according to my greed, or according to my weakness. Thank you.
My name is John. I also come from Uganda. Thank you, Your Excellency, for the wonderful presentation. At least people know something good out of Uganda that India means. You know. So we live in a digital era today, and this digital space has been weaponized in a way of character assassinating the good people we have in the struggle. They target their families, their kids, they say all sorts of things. And our people being unsuspecting, the digital divide is quite huge in Uganda. There are still so many people who simply believe what they see on TV because someone states it's a fact, therefore it is. And today we have a challenge where all these people you see who have given up so much to be part of this struggle have been character assassinated. Like, so many people cannot even move or speak in public because social media has been used as a weapon to bring them down. So my question is, Your Excellency, what plan do you have to counteract this kind of weaponization of social media? Because I also understand that social media is a strong tool that we can use to take down the dictatorship. But it can also be used to propagate propaganda and to instigate fear and terror. And that is exactly what is happening right now. My second question, which is also the last one, is I'm trying to compare the US foreign policy and the European foreign policy, and I see different policies. And to me, foreign policy is a reflection of domestic policy. So when you watch debate on what's going on here, there is discussion on gun violence and so many things. And the US, also being democratic, is not spared from some of the things, because democracy is also a very subjective thing, you know. Gun violence is still a very big challenge here, you know, and the domestic policy has not yet fixed it, you know. And we have politicians who think that it takes one good man to, I've forgotten the right phrase, but you all know what I'm talking about. And yet, these are the people we run to fix our problems. There are people who have no clue, you know. on how to fix challenges in their own spaces, how to protect young children who are being massacred in schools. These are the people we run to and expect them to fix and I see some similarity in the US foreign policy, so to say, because of what is happening in other countries is like a transfer of the domestic policy. And I feel like certain things have to be revised. So, like when you sit down with these people, what message do you have for the designers of this foreign policy that is seeming so flawed in so many respects? The last question, I have only 3. It's a very important question. Being an international student, and I know that so many other international students are going through the same challenge. But those of us who come from Uganda, we are only granted a visa, a 1-year visa. And regardless of whether you're a PhD student and your PhD is going to take 5 years, you have to go back to Uganda every year to renew your visa. Now imagine all the costs involved, and so I'm just throwing this in there that if you meet some people who can help us amplify the voice of international students, that would be good. Thank you so much. Sorry for the many questions.
Thank you. I'll start with the last question about international students and how they can be assisted. That's supposed to be a government policy. The government is supposed to negotiate for its students. Unfortunately, the priority of the government in Uganda are not the Ugandans. You are lucky in America, and your only problem is having to go back to renew your visa. Every day, more than 3 planes leave Uganda with young girls as young as 13 years, although in their passport they add age, going to the Middle East to work as maids, as modern-day slaves. There are numerous reports of abuse, sexual abuse, and as if that's not nasty enough, many of them are taken for organ extraction, and many return with only 1 kidney or dead. On a daily, we have young girls that are returned to Uganda dead because of abuse or different ways. There is a constant cry. A few months ago, we had a campaign to return Ugandans that were stuck there, that I had to travel to Dubai and Qatar to perform, to stage shows, so as I can be able to charter a plane to bring back young girls. We were able to bring back 270 girls, but many of them got stuck there. Unfortunately, the government of Uganda worked with the government of Dubai to block that concert, and that concert did not happen because apparently it was tarnishing the name of the regime. The Ugandans here know exactly what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, still, on a daily, young girls and boys are seen kicking and wailing, trying to get on the plane because they would rather die trying to make a living for their mothers and fathers than die of hunger back home. That is the situation. We can only be able to help you as international students when there is a leadership that is serving the interests of the people of Uganda, not the interests of the regime. I'm sorry for that answer, but I wanted to be very honest. About social media, yes, you said you were asking how we counter social media misinformation. But I'll inform you that because social media is our only means of communication that is not under government control. First, there was a social media tax in Uganda. The only country in the world that put a tax on social media. Not on data, don't get me wrong. You will buy your data, and then for you to access Twitter or Facebook, you'll have to pay a tax of 200 shillings to use social media. And General Museveni said they're putting a tax because people are using social media for rumor mongering. I was imprisoned for protesting with my friends against social media tax, and I kept going to court. The case was just dismissed a few weeks ago. But still, to cut down social media, because General Museveni saw that social media is the only thing that was exposing him. As we speak right now, Facebook is banned in Uganda. But never mind, we access it, we're smart guys. We use VPN. But Facebook is banned in Uganda. But while Facebook is banned in Uganda, if you go on Facebook and look for a Uganda police Facebook page, you'll find that there's an update of a few hours ago. So the Uganda Communications Commission, the Uganda police and all that communicate on Facebook. And yet the Minister of Information actually came out and announced that anybody that is caught using VPN will be arrested and prosecuted. So that is where we are in Uganda. Still in the same breath, the government spends a lot of money. There's an organization called Government Citizens Interaction Center, GCIC. It's a tall building where young men and women in their hundreds are employed to run multiple fake pages of disinformation to counter the truth. These are the blogs that you're going to find announcing false information about the opposition. They are paid using taxpayers' money. So how do we counter it? We counter lies with the truth. Because we know that while the lies are quick to move around, the truth definitely catches up with them. And we are many, and the truth is stronger. So we counter with the truth. We are many, and we encourage our people to use facts, to put facts out there. And so far, we are winning the information battle. I don't know for how long that's going to be, but for now, we are the guys on top.
So anyway, Bobby, I don't really have any questions because I'm one of those crazy people who would be up all night following you on your campaign. And so when we were talking about craziness, I don't think people understand. See, I was on my couch looking at you when these, when the people, policemen or people dressed in army suits, wouldn't allow you to use a road because they wanted you to go around some other road. And I saw you going and fighting the man. So I don't know how you could say that you're not strong, you're desperate. But I was always amazed at your courage. Like this thing was just constant, day after day. Every day he went out to campaign, he was up against this kind of firepower, you know? And then the people, one of the things that I observed was the young people, the resilience. They have a lot to teach the rest of Africa. They really do. And because now I've been looking to, right now my focus is on Nigeria and the obedient movement. And so I'm thinking that all of you young people have to find a way to connect and to collaborate, because it's the whole of Africa. What's happening in Uganda is not an isolated case. And the young people are ready. They're not going to take, they're in a different mindset, and they're not going to take what their parents do. So you need to get allies. and not always be looking on the outside, because remember, it's not in their interest for you to be liberated. All right? Your oppressor is never going to finance your freedom. All right? So while you come and you ask them and whatnot, they would help. But when 300 people are killed like that by Museveni, somebody should say something. You know, they say a few things and then they forget it. See what I mean? And so I'm looking at what's happening in Nigeria, and we're happy so far that there's not a bloodbath. And we hope for the best there. But man, I just want to congratulate you and to give you all the strength. We should just think about him all the time. I had this program, Africana Film and Discussion, and we did a little film that there was on you to just spread the word that people know that there's this young man who is putting up this heroic fight against one of the biggest dictators in Africa, and trying to spread that, you know, and so I'm very happy about this. And I think that the ancestors are with you, because I really don't know how you were doing it. I was seeing it, and people, you don't understand how crazy this is. But then when he comes on stage, there are all these thousands of young people giving him support, you know, and they're singing, we are fighting for freedom. See, when they took all your people, threw them in jail, when they kept Nubian, and I think they were doing that on purpose. I saw how hurt you were. Yeah. But thank God, you know, he came out. And so that's it. I just wanted to tell you that your job is
Thank you, Dr. Daniels. I think that was very, I think it was poignant and it was accurate now for the conclusion of this program, because segueing to, I would say, the Pan-African cause of how we're all connected and how what's happening in Uganda is affecting us here. What's happening in Ghana is affecting us here. What's happening in Nigeria is affecting us here. We would like to thank His Excellency again for making this appearance here at Howard University. And today I have acted only as a conduit, because this is an extension of what happened last week at the State of the Black World Conference 5, convened by the Institute of the Black World and Dr. Daniels. And this young lady to my right is actually responsible for His Excellency being in this country, as well as Brother Haki. And I mentioned him at the beginning of this in my remarks in my thank yous. But I wanted to introduce the Miss Kim Poole, who is a soul fusion performing artist and founding fellow of the Teaching Artists Institute, which provides opportunities for artists to learn techniques for social transformation while fostering outlets for socially engaged art. The Teaching Artists Institute operates in the US, Ghana, Liberia, Jamaica, Uganda, Tanzania, and the Gambia. And through the Teaching Artists Institute, Kim Poole and an international team of teaching artists are originating the Art for Social Transformation, Teaching Artistry in Action curriculum, a workbook for change agents and universities interested in exploring the art of possibility. I can go on and on again about her accolades and the work that she's doing, but the sister and again Brother Aki are very powerful, and I encourage all of you to connect with them. And again, it's their doing that has His Excellency here to speak and connect with you all at Howard University. So please, without further ado, please give a round of applause to Ms. Kim Poole.
I've been walking with my face held to the sun, weight on my shoulder, a bullet in my gun, and I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can, where I can, where I am for my people, till the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night. That's why I'm gonna stand up. Take my people with me. Together we are going through a brand new home. Far across the river, you see freedom flowing, calling me to take my people home. I can feel it in my bones. So I don't start with music because I want you to clap. I start with music because it's essential that I bring my culture into the room, that we begin with the vibration that is life. We are the rhythm people. And every institution that we've created has to be deconstructed so that we can build on fertile ground. We have to abolish every institution, every educational, every policy, every leader that believes that we can build healthy in a healthy way and not create the same system all over again if we don't change our mindset, if we don't change our culture. We have to decolonize our education, especially at places right here like Howard University. It's essential that we know the U.S. is not coming to save us. This is a sinking ship. And my tribe here, we know it firsthand because we have been in a sinking ship since they dropped us off on these shores at the bottom of those ships in chains. We have to support Uganda, but ultimately we have to support a borderless Africa. He is the beginning.
Yeah.
We can no longer acknowledge the geographical boundaries that were given to us by colonial powers. We have to remember that when we were enslaved mentally and physically here, they were colonized on the continent. And everything that you see is an outgrowth of that colonization and that mindset. And it's essential that here in the diaspora, we build a liberated zone, first and foremost in our minds, so that we can build behind enemy lines and take resources from this system that we gave with our blood, sweat, and tears. Make no mistake about it, every institution in the United States, my people were the first stock on Wall Street. So they're not giving me anything. I'm taking back what I gave, 400 years of free labor. And it's essential that we understand our role. Since you got a pass out of Uganda, you need to know what to do with it. Don't come over here and rebuild the same institution. Don't go back to Uganda and regurgitate what you're reading in these European context structures. I think honestly, what matters most from this conversation is that you ask yourself, what am I going to do about it, right? What institution am I going to build? In my organization, the Teaching Artists Institute, that's the organization that we built. That's the institution that we're building. I'm an artist. And I've always supported Bobi Wine because he started as an artist. You are the civic engagers, but art is not exclusive for just me and Bobi Wine. There is an artist in each one of you. Use your creativity. Tap into that. Don't let them make you believe that creativity and innovation is somehow for what the people at the open mic do. No, I need you to be creative. I need you to tap into your divinity. God spoke and said, let there be life, and created an entire world. You believe that if you're a Christian, but here we are, one way or the other. Having that been said, I want you to understand your power as students. Take your place at the front of this movement. Speak on how you feel. With that microphone, you can shift our reality. You can literally use vibration. The words, the spoken word can change our atmosphere and define reality. I want to empower you in that way today. And if you're interested in going into the lion's den and building institutions on the continent, please ask us, because we're not going to save Africa in the United States. Eventually, you're going to have to get on a plane, you're going to have to get on a boat, you're going to have to walk through Kuta in Morocco, however you get there, you're going to have to go. And so if you're interested in being on the ground, listen, because you're in the U.S. and they have policy interests, you are protected. You can go and say things that the locals can't say. You can say, shut up, Miss Seven. Maybe you can't say that, right? Miss Seven is crazy. Listen, we still work in Uganda. We understand that. We have to watch how we say it. But we can absolutely say and do things that those that live there, when we get back on the plane, that they can't say, because they still have to go to work. They still have to go to school. We need you to be that mouthpiece and use that microphone to shift reality. So again, I'm Kim Poole with the Teaching Artists Institute. You've already been here. and you've asked a lot of great questions. I don't want to take the rest of your time. I know Daquan is going to make sure that he closes us out on the right note. But last but not least, we have continental Africans, those of you that were born on the continent that still have that passport that can go back or not as you see fit. And you have those of us that have always over-romanticized what Africa would be if only we had just gotten home. When they dropped us off on these shores, the only thing we wanted to do was get back home, not knowing that the same trauma we had here was happening on the continent. And so now we have Pan-Africanism. We birthed that. So the tribalism that they deal with, the I'm this tribe and, I'm with 70s parties and we're in power. And, the truth is this, the Baganda Kingdom, we need to go back with the Pan-African spirit. And we have that in the diaspora. But we need you, continental Africans that came here on your passport, that are getting visas to connect with us in the diaspora too. Because when we do reclaim the Ugandas and the Nigerias and the Cameroons with BIA, it's your job now to get rid of those geographical borders so that the historic diaspora can also be included. And I'm from that tribe. So thank you again for inviting us to this table, because it means that he's headed in the right direction and we need to support him on his journey.
I'm happy that everybody can feel the energy here. I know even the people who aren't physically here with us can feel the energy through these cameras. Once again, I would like to thank again His Excellency and everybody again for being here, making this wonderful occasion, this once in a lifetime occasion. Again, thank you to the Teaching Arts Institute. And the only comment that I have is just to ground this discussion and things that we've all heard. Focus on the aspect of democracy. We've been focused on the African context and we've been focused on Uganda. We know that democracy is currently being threatened here in the United States. And I think it's important to, if I could just connect dots, if one considers how colonialism still impacts Africa, then one can see how former colonizers still benefit from the status quo. Again, going to His Excellency Mr. Wine and what he shared about Uganda, we should consider Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, and other places that were colonized by the British, and consider how these African nations still abide by constitutions that were implemented by colonizers. I could go on and on and on, and again, I could stand on a soapbox and talk about what the brother asked about foreign policies that are disadvantageous to Africa, because there's so many. But again, there are different scholars who are working on African constitutionalism. And I only mention that again because we are here at the Mecca. I think it's again incumbent upon us as scholars, as young people, whether we consider ourselves artists, whether we consider ourselves researchers, to again hold these institutions accountable, because there are several double standards and it's really not hard to find if you're being honest with yourself. So once again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, His Excellency, again for making this a monumental occasion. We really hope that you come back, and we count down the days until you do become president of Uganda. And it doesn't take that to happen for us to be connected. So again, once again, I encourage everybody to connect, and thank you for being here. And I will just close this out.